All right. Well, we're recording. We're live.
Fantastic. We're kind of live, right?
Well, kind of live.
It's like when Saturday Night Live did their at-home episodes, and they sat there and they're like, "And live, sorta."
And
It was about
live
half
from
the
New
things
York.
were live.
It's Saturday
It was good.
night.
It's good times.
Absolutely.
All right.
All right. So
All right,
what are
let's
we
start
doing
this.
here? Chris, you called us all together. What's the deal?
Absolutely, because I'm just getting bored, and Pope looked like he was having so much fun. And the real truth is that SAINTCON's around the corner, and I'm super excited. Just totally missing everybody, though. It's tell you what, those we usually work from Troy's. I'm missing that like nobody's business. Always good to see people. So, but anyway, what we want to do on this one specifically is talk about how to mentor and raise the next generation of hackers. And I use, of course, hackers in the nice word and not in the malicious word, which may run into a few of the answers that we're going to talk about as well. Let's just do some quick introductions across the room. I'll start with me. I'm Chris Morgan. I'm the really big dude, and believe it or not, Troy had to get a bigger dude to replace Kelly, and so he picked me. It's just how it goes. So apparently,
Well, first of all, there's
might be
no
the next
replacing
one.
Kelly, by the way.
That
It
is
just isn't.
that is so true.
Yeah.
I miss that guy.
Yeah, we tried to get Kelly on here. He wasn't able to do it, which is unfortunate. So we're going to try some more. Maybe we can get him to send some stuff in for us. But for me, I've always just done security with my jobs. Never 100% security. I love it. I love mentoring.
Wait. You didn't give us your handle. Like, how are people even supposed to figure out who you are? Like in Discord or whatever during the conference?
I'm Jupiter in Discord.
No, you're not.
All right, if you won't
I
find
turned
me,
that feature off, by the way.
that's why I'm telling it right now. Just hit up Jupiter; he'll find you. I'm sirashrum in Discord. On my Twitter handle, which mostly deals with SaintCon, I'm the giant nerd. And yeah, you got to get the capitalization right, or else you get some other weird person. So it's nothing new there.
Okay, so your handle, sirashrum.
Yep, sirashrum.
Where'd you get him? Or where'd you get it? What's it about?
Sure, absolutely. I am a giant nerd, hence the other one. In the days of free email, which a lot of these kids don't understand that there was such a thing as you had to either pay or find free email, I had to come up with a screen name that was unique because my name is Chris Morgan, and you can't get more bland than that. So here's another side story to this story. I used to work federal government, and they started implementing email for life because they kept ticking up too high, especially with contractors. I was a contractor for them, and so every time you go in and you get a new contractor, go get a different job, and maybe come back and be a contractor, you would get an email with your full name. So Christopher.Morgan .ctr
.311c.gov or whatever. Yeah.
And so it just, and I'm not even kidding. Like I did it 3 times in a row because I was on bubble contracts, and it went from like .46.us.af.mil to .97, and that was within like a total of 6 months. So that is one of the problems with the name like Chris Morgan. I love my name.
That's why we invented handles. You know, there are a million Troys, there's a million Chris's, there's a quadrillion Daves. Jeremy maybe a little less popular, but still, there's a lot of those. So
there's only one Therm though. We all know that.
That's true.
And so I picked something that would be so random that I could get email addresses and usernames without anyone else running into it, and that's sirashrum, which comes from an anime. I'm not going to tell you which one because I would love to see if anyone can pick it out. If they pick it out, I'll send you a mini badge.
Okay.
That's really down the list.
It's
a really easy Google.
Okay, I was going to say, like, Google doesn't know what this is or whatever.
They should.
Cool.
I would hope so, but I really want someone to have actually seen the series. So, and that's where that comes from. And it's just stuck forever because it was always available. Very rarely would I find someone else with it on a game server or whatever.
Nice.
And so that's just what I stuck with forever, and it's been great. that's pretty much how my handle comes about. Security is just coming in the security world is just a lot of fun. I always work general. I'm a system administrator, which just means I do everything in the world. So, and I work for companies because I've worked government, both federal and public. And I've come from places where they really narrow down your jobs. And I don't like that. I don't like the granularization of you're the third Microsoft Exchange server admin. And if you do that as your job, I'm not telling you no. That's a great job, but not for me. And so everywhere I've been a network administrator, system administrator, and a security engineer. And it's a lot of extra work, and I find it way too enjoyable. So
cool.
I can't remember if I got any more questions out of there, but that's what you got. If anyone wants to know what's going on behind me, I'll give you that real quick. This is my daughter's room. And right now we're finishing the basement. So all the kids are in one room. And I have my desk, her desk, another desk, my wife's desk, and my desk is a big U. So when the kids come home or they come and do school from home, we're all in this room.
That's awesome. So basically, we need to do a workspace tour for Chris this SAINTCON, right?
Just be a spin in a circle, and I'll be done.
Nice.
What I'll do is I'll remove all the cereal boxes before we do that, though. But that's who I am. Not many people, I think, know me around from the community. Besides, I'm the third or fourth largest dude at SAINTCON, behind Jeremy's cousins, Misha, and then I think there's me.
Yeah, Misha's a pretty big kid, that's for sure.
And for all of you who have never met Misha, who go to SAINTCON, take your time and meet Misha. He is the nicest guy I've ever met.
Yeah, pretty cool dude.
He's 6'9", 6'10", and just the sweetest guy. From Slovakia, or no, he's from Serbia.
Serbia. Yep.
From Serbia.
He's a good guy.
Anyway, it's way big tangent there. Hey, Therm, tell us about you, man.
Sweet. So I started my life at UVSC on the help desk like 20 years ago. And then Troy stole me to go up to UEN. So actually, Troy was my first mentor. I hope he appreciates the 10% I send him every month as part of, my gratuity for him helping me 20,000 years ago. I went to UEN. I worked at the University of Utah. I did a stint there in their NOC. I just finished. I'm now a contractor. Well, was a contractor. Just finished up working at SAP. Monday, I will be accepting a job at Accenture Federal, working on their cloud security, their managed service solution. So Troy kind of got me into security. We started, a long time ago, man.
There's a lot of good stories about those times, too.
Yeah, and I got to clean them up. So I'm like, what can we talk about?
We'll bring some of those out, so don't go into them now.
Yeah.
We'll start asking questions about mentoring.
Good.
Oh,
yeah, the mentoring questions, the trouble we got into. But yeah, I mean, mentoring is a big part. I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for, Troy saw a little bit of ambition in me and taught me, maybe we learned together the PIX firewall solution.
Oh boy.
And that kind of started me on the road to hell. My handle depends on it. I have two. One is less Utah friendly, which is Packet Pimp, which me and Troy picked out or together as a group team. More Utah friendly, I go by Packet Monster, which is a Cookie Monster reference. I used to spend a lot of time in Ethereal, which now I spend a lot of time in Wireshark. And that's kind of where that came from. I've since seen other people pick it up in recent years, but I'm willing to share.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
One that okay, so I'm going to side tangent that again too. So did they change the name to Wireshark because no one could pronounce Ethereal, or kept calling it Ethereal?
I don't remember the whole politics behind that. Do you? Troy?
GIF. I mean, who cares,
Yeah.
right?
They actually put a pronunciation guide on their website back in the day.
Wow.
Because I called it ethereal, and people looked at me like I was the biggest moron in the world. It's ethereal. Like,
Oh, well, sorry, my bad.
sorry, I play Diablo 2. It's ethereal. Come on.
Yeah.
All right, Jerry, let's hear yours.
Oh, well, I started out on a help desk position, just like Therm, but it just so happened to be at Dixie College, which is now Dixie State University. They've changed a lot since then. But way back in the day, we worked the help desk and had a lot of fun and a lot of funny pranks. Good days. And since then, I jumped on and started working for Washington County School District, which is who I'm working for now, and been there for almost 20 years. And I currently am the network and security coordinator, so I manage our network and security team. But loving it, love working in security. Troy actually kind of mentored me as well as that goes in the security realm. I went to my first SAINTCON back in the Richfield days. And just shortly after that, Troy, we came down to Dixie to do a SAINTCON. Well, it was Utah Saint Conference back then. And Troy brought me on to help with that conference. And I've been on ever since. So it's
a death sentence, as it were.
Death sentence. No,
Lifetime calling, man.
it's a lifetime calling, but it is a labor of love and something that I love doing. So it's been a real trip and a whole lot of fun. But enjoying, I enjoy doing what I'm doing. Anyway, my handle is supertechguy. That came from a similar story to Chris's story. I was looking for a handle that I could relate to, that nobody else had.
And one of the rules was make it as long as possible, right?
Yeah, make it as long as absolutely possible. And one that I could buy a .com for, by the way. And so back then, nobody else had used that. And that was a long time ago. And since then, there has been a few, and that's okay, that have jumped on it. But that's my story.
Nice thing for mine is most people bailed on my handle. I don't see it anywhere.
Yeah,
It's
that's
great.
right. That makes it unique, which is cool.
I love it.
That is cool.
Just means I'm old school and love a really old anime. So that's all right. I'm cool with that.
Nice.
All right. So I think we all know who Troy is, and I think most people know who Troy is. And Troy got his handle from the train that went through Utah.
No.
Just kidding.
No, actually, so I've had a couple of handles over the years. Jupiter's the one that I like the most. But
It's Jupiter because you have a Roman god complex and you're going for the god of all.
Right. Is that what Jupiter is, the god of all? No. So, back the way Jupiter came around is a number of years ago when we were hosting the DEF CON Capture the Flag competition. There was a year where nobody knew who was hosting the competition, who was actually running it behind the scenes. And so it was my job to kind of be the front man because I was kind of an unknown in that space up until that point. Had helped out and played in competitions and other things before that. But I was helping out, and all of the different people inside of our group picked names of the planets. And so by the time it got around to me, the only planet left was Jupiter. So, we had Mars and Mercury and Venus, and I don't think anybody picked Uranus, but,
Was this the time you guys were both running and competing in the CTF?
Might have been that year.
Might have been that year.
And competing in
Probably should have said that, but it's been long enough ago. No, they did not win. They didn't cheat that bad.
We recused ourselves from being able to win, but
yeah.
So that's where Jupiter got stuck, and that's what I started getting known by in the DEF CON scene and some of the broader hacker communities out there. And so that one's the one I've had to stick with. A 3-syllable handle is sometimes a mouthful, but hey, it works. Jupiter it is. So that's me.
We'll take it. Well, again, thanks for everyone being here and having this kind of fun. So let's start with the first part of it. When we talk about mentoring, what do you put into that? What would be mentoring to you when we talk about mentoring the youth of today, the next generation? And that's a question for anyone.
1, 2, 3, not it.
So when, for example, I have kids that I mentor, and I mentor a couple other people at work too, and they have questions. Especially, so I'll start at that basic level one, is mentoring just the coworkers I have, new, old, whatever, and that generation to understand is, I think, the first thing I think mentoring starts out for me as I start mentoring people, is to get the comprehension and understanding of what this is and why it's important. And I think that leads to the interest, that little spark of, this is really fun, this is cool, or this might even be scary, right? Sir, you had something?
I was thinking a majority of what I've done for coworkers is it's encouragement, because they feel really dumb when they first start. If they're actually any good, they will come in and be blown away by the learning curve that's in the beginning. I had one coworker, he became the Splunk dude, like the one Splunk guy for $1 billion company, and he didn't know Linux or anything. So I sat down the first thing I told him was like, relax, dude. You know, we all know that you only have a year under your belt, straight out of college. And I actually bought him a Linux Bible, one of those Linux books that I've used over the years. I'm like, here's a starting point. And in the last 3 years that he's been an admin, he's probably one of the best Linux guys at that corporation now. I think just the encouragement, and that we've all been there. And there's my mom's dog.
Nice.
Yeah, I live with my mom. Leave me alone, guys.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong at all. It's interesting because Thurman and I have just recently been talking about this particular thing, haven't we? As we talk about mentoring the younger generation, it's really important that when they start to show some potential capability at a young age, that we steer them in the correct path, so that one, they don't jump ship and go all the way down the slippery slide at the bottom where it's not so good, but then they also don't feel like, hey, they feel encouraged to continue with those skills and continue to develop those things that they can do, because so often in our day, if you have a kid that does something that's considered hacking, it's like, oh my gosh, we got to take action on this kid, because he's done something terribly bad, and in reality his only crime was he was curious and just wanted to see, and he wasn't really trying to be malicious in any way. And most of the time that's the case. Now there is those occasional times when it's not, but you've got to be conscientious of how you deal with those kids, so you don't push them to the wrong direction, and that you can encourage them building those skills.
I like that. When you talk about the down the right path, encouraging the right path, that's an interesting one. I remember talking to my sister about it because she kept asking me about SAINTCON as well. She's like, "What are you teaching the kids?" I'm like, "We teach them to think like hackers." She's like, "Okay, what does that mean?" I'm like, "That means to question everything. That means to try new things and try and break things." She's like, "Okay, I don't want my kids breaking things, and I get that. And subverting, right? It's all subversion. You tell me I can't do something, I'm going to find a new way to do it. I'm going to question the way it's done until I can figure out what I can do without breaking the rules." So when you say correct path, can you expand on that a little bit for us, Jer?
Yeah, well, there's obviously a couple of different ways to go down this career. I mean, you can either go down the ethical path or the non-ethical path, and we certainly want to encourage people to do the right thing and be ethical in the way that they approach those types of things. Because there's plenty of employment on both sides, isn't there? But we definitely want to encourage to do it the right way. And so I think that's what I'm talking about. The generally when you take a kid and you punish them for their curiosity and their desire to learn, and all they ever see is punishment, there's two ways that can go. They can either rebel, which will send them down the wrong path ultimately, or it could, not necessarily, but it definitely could. It's the start, or they'll just stop altogether, and then that's a loss of talent. So that's I think that needs to be approached very wisely.
And I know from you mentioned that you worked in the Washington School District for a long time now. Have you seen changes to help that out? Or is it something that you get to see at all from where you stand?
Yeah,
I
actually.
was going to say, I assume that you have to deal with any kind of issue like that, being the over the network and security.
Yeah, that is something that is part of my responsibilities. And when we have a significant incident involving a student, then usually what happens is I go and have a sit down conversation with the principal, and we discuss what happened, identify kind of what the issue was, what was the kid really trying to do. We talk to the kid and just kind of ask them, and then we treat it accordingly, so that we say, the first part of the conversation is, hey, let's not punish this kid in any way if this was not malicious. If it was just curious and he was just trying to figure something out, or if he was responsibly disclosing things, and I mean all those types of things we want to encourage. We don't want to discourage it by punishing them for something that wasn't intentionally malicious. Now, obviously, we've had kids that have been malicious in intent. We've had kids selling grades and all sorts of stuff like that, and those things you have to take differently. But there's also a great deal number of kids that are just curious. They just kind of want to figure things out. Which reminds me of myself a lot, because I can tell you I broke lots of things when I was a kid, and including a VCR that never ever made it back together. So we've all been there.
Very much so. That's actually one of the hardest things for me, and I've been trying so hard with my kids is I don't want them to be like me in a good way. I'm like, you need to be your own person. And I watch them go down and do things like I would do. I'm like, and I have to just sit on my hands and bite my tongue because it's like, go do it, go break it. And my favorite worst conversation I had lately was, if you're going to do it, at least clean it up so I don't find out about it.
That's how I work with my wife. Gotta clean up stuff before she catches me.
If you're going to take something and go around the rules, you got to do better so you don't get caught. And it's an awkward conversation to have, but in my opinion, incredibly necessary in all fronts of mentoring.
All right, that's a fine line you're drawing right there.
Yeah.
Really razor thin.
It is.
But hey, I respect it. I mean, different kids, different strokes for different folks, kinds of things. I mean, there are so many different types of people out there that can learn from the failure. In fact, I think that's one of the things that's been really hard in the last decade or so is trying to find somebody who's willing to learn by just doing it and failing at it over and over and over and over again. I mean, I think I can speak for Jeremy and Dave for sure and just say a lot of the experience and things that we've got came from that trial and error. I mean, I didn't learn Windows back in the day from reading a manual or going to some training class, but I knew that OS inside and out. I could write memory register changes and all kinds of things into that thing because I just messed around with it and found some article somewhere that talked about it, or some buddy of mine had tried something and check this out, kind of thing. But yeah, crazy.
I share that story of, how we all learned to network. Quake and Doom. What's an IP address? I literally threw in numbers till something worked.
No, seriously, you know what? When we started doing it, we played this old program. Maybe some of you remember it. It's called Descent.
Yes.
Like you fly around this little spaceship and shoot the other guy kind of thing. I'll tell you what, we learned how to do IPX addressing because that's all that game would support. And IPX, like, what the heck is that? But we've got to play together. We got to bridge this network. And then come to find out you could buy this IPX to IP translator and encapsulator and things. So cool. But yeah, that's how we learned networking. And then it's like, oh, we want to be able to do this from home. Well, we're not going to be on the same network, so how are we going to do this?
That's right.
Okay, yeah, we got to use this thing called the internet,
Hamachi and
all those different things back then, right?
Now we
use fun.
And now we have $100 million networks we work on. I think I have 10 million cloud resources that we run for security for. Who would have thought that it would have come from a silly game? In our basements, but the fundamentals stay the same.
Yeah. That's
cool. Chris, come on, keep going. More topics. Let's go.
I'm doing great. I'm enjoying this conversation thoroughly. Like I should have said at the beginning, this is meant to be super loose and fun.
Good.
I'm not going to be.
That's what you're going to get.
I know. I get Thurman and Troy in a room. I'm surprised that I haven't seen Troy take a hit off his due yet.
I don't have one in front of me. I ran out today.
I'm drinking my Monster in celebration of Bryce Coons, who's my secret friend.
I have never seen Bryce without a Monster.
I love that guy.
We went to the storage unit and he drove and he had like 2 extra Monsters in the car and open.
Redundancy, dude. H.A. Pear.
That's right.
Don't mess with him, man. Now, Bryce is literally, he may be the scariest guy I know. Like, yeah, when he was working for 3-letter agencies, I was just afraid for everybody else in the world.
He was amazing. I love him. Super awesome guy. So, as we are transitioning to be mentors, and some of us are mentors already, what should we strive to be able to mentor? What have you found successful as a mentor in yourself? We'll start with Troy on that one.
Oh, me.
Because he called not it last time.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
But actually, I've got a good response to this. It's something that I've held true for myself for a long, long time, and that is, I don't want to make this sound like I'm tooting my own horn or anything. But here's the thing. No, but I've mentored a lot of people in different ways. I mean, when it comes to folks out there, there's a long list of people that I've had interaction with and put onto this path. Kelly Genesee, Kevin Howard, Dave Thurm. The list is long and distinguished. But here's the thing. They all had one thing in common. And this is that thing that rings true for me, is they have to have that spark of interest. And it has to go deeper than just, I've been thinking about that. You've got to see them in the struggle at the moment, wanting to learn that thing however they can and just failing miserably. And that's when you jump in. That's when you find that desire to learn. And you can teach anything with that. And so not only is that carried over in the mentoring with different people that I've mentored over the years, but it carries through with how I hire people in the positions that I have that I'm hiring for. I hire people more often based off of that drive and determination than I do about skill sets. Because you know what? I can teach them the skills, but you can't teach people drive and determination. And so for me, that is one of the most important attributes for a mentor to understand, is recognizing when they see that drive and determination, and just helping that person out with that thing, blowing their mind. For them, it's a mind blow. For you, it's just like, yeah, I did that last Tuesday, But for them, it blows their mind. And then all of a sudden, you've got them past this big problem or this big issue that they're dealing with. And man, it's like a fish on a hook. They're ready to go and to learn a lot of cool and interesting things, and very, very much so change their lives. I mean, there's a lot of folks out there like Dave who have gotten into this type of thing by accident, kind of. I mean, how did we meet? And I don't even remember. Like, I went down to UVSC one day and I met this kid, and he was like this really cocky little bugger. And
I was bad.
And was trying to tell me how everything is done and everything else. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, all right, sounds good. I mean, like, you flex those muscles, baby.
Dude, I was such an idiot.
But it's cool that they realized that, months or years later, like, oh man, the phrase that I like to use is, I didn't even know then what I didn't know. Like, there's so much to learn that I didn't even know what I didn't know. But anyways, it's so much fun to do that for people. And for me, one of the things about SAINTCON, and just cut me off if I'm going too long here, but one of the things that I love about SAINTCON, the reason why we built it, or why I built it, and my most favorite thing, is to go downstairs into that large arena and walk around the lock picking table. And I'll tell you what, when you see somebody pick a lock for the first time, that is all of the satisfaction I need to do this for another year. Because
I was actually going to bring that up.
That's when they get it. That's when they're like, holy cow, I just blew my own mind. I did something that I had no idea how to do. I did it in 2 minutes or 10 hours, however long they spent there doing that. But to see that, I don't know, exhilaration in their face, that is amazing. And that's what mentoring should be about, is helping those people learn those things and just fostering that creativity. So anyways, I've talked long enough. Yeah. Somebody else talk.
So going on with that lockpick, I did that at work back when we all used to attend work. And I have it on my desk. And I taught just about everyone in the office who was willing to try how to lockpick. And you watch that elation of popping your first lock. And they're just like, whoa. And then all of a sudden you watch the next click, though, which is my favorite part of that click, where they go, oh, that was easy.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
the
crap.
Moment of, this sucks for security.
And then I just go like this, and I'm like, would you like to talk about something now? And it's true. It's like, that moment is fantastic. I'm gonna ask Therm that question again a little bit different. But did you want to add anything to that, Jer? If not, that's cool too.
No, I think Troy covered it. That's the beauty of all of this, is seeing people actually get it, the vision, see the lights come on, and they go, oh, I get it, and now I understand it. And then the beauty beyond that is once you catch them, it's like they're hooked. They love it. It's
like a drug,
it's a
man.
passion. Yeah, it's a drug. Yeah. They're totally hooked.
Compromising a box, I'll tell you what, that gives you quite the rush.
Yeah.
How would you know, Troy? We've never ever done that.
Well, it's like I had so my degree is in information systems and technology, emphasis in security. And one of my professors, his favorite thing to do was he gave out 4 major assignments. And one was to learn about encryption. And the other one was to play with an actual virus, not just some script kiddie stuff, but go get a virus and compromise a machine. And people were so standoffish of that. And they would just do the group think thing. Like, what one did you get working? I tried like 6 or 7 of them, just trying to find out the one I liked the best. And yet I did end up using the same that a lot of people in the class used because it was easy to demo.
Yeah, which one was it? Don't keep us in suspense.
Dude, I can't remember anymore.
And while you're degree dropping, I mean, can we all degree drop for a minute?
Be my guest. They're all better than mine.
All right. I'm just saying you don't have to have it. That's another thing. I think it's important. You don't have to have a degree in computer information systems with an emphasis on security. You know what this guy has a degree in? Humanities. You know what Dave has a degree in?
High school.
Didn't even go to college. Jeremy, what's your degree in?
Information technology.
With an emphasis on security?
Nope.
So anyways, I guess what I'm saying is you can still be great at technology. It doesn't require that special training per se. Now, these days, it's important to go get an education and to learn those things. I don't want to diminish that at all. Please do.
I was going to say, I'll caveat with that. It depends on what you want to do with your career, and it's hard for anyone to talk about this, and this is a huge sidetrack. I want specifically to be able to work with 3-letter agencies.
Mm-hmm.
And you, at that point in time, you have to be able to have some form of formal education to be able to do that, either as a civil servant or as a contractor. Now, as a contractor, you don't necessarily need one, but you need 15 years of experience to be able to get any kind of job to do that.
Sure.
So because of that was my whole goal.
And that's totally good. I wasn't trying to
no. Well, that's what I want people to understand too off that conversation. I'm with you. Some of the people I know who are so dang good at this don't have one college credit. And you don't need a college credit to be a genius. I will be the first one to say go to college as a portion of learning, but if you don't want to get a degree, don't get a degree.
Definitely don't go into debt. I mean, I see like these people hundreds of thousands of dollars. I was director of IT for a college in Nashville that the kids were $120,000 in debt for arts degrees.
Yep.
And it breaks my heart now looking back to how catastrophic that is for 10 years. But yeah, I would definitely, if you have a desire to learn on your own, I would recommend that. And then Western Governors, my daughter's doing their CS program, and I think she's 2 years done in like 2 months. But that's all she does. She wakes up, she does college, wakes up, does college every day. And she's able to go through it faster because it's at your own pace. So don't invest a lot of money in your education if you're going into IT, because everything you learn in college is probably going to be old by the time you get out or not really practical to whatever organization you're working in.
Well, and that was one of my favorite things too. Like you talk about learning an operating system. At that point in time, when I went through school, my Linux experience was very minimal.
But you learned OS2 Warp though, didn't you?
No.
I did that. But I bought it myself. I didn't learn in college. Hey, it's 632-bit, man. I could give it a meg of conventional RAM.
It's all right.
Sweet.
No matter where you go, you'll always run into someone who just does the pretend glasses push up and talks to you about how awesome Linux is above everything else.
Yeah, I don't pretend. My glasses actually do sag. So
same here. But I was doing one, and we're doing it on terminal server. Don't ask me what to do with it now because I don't need to anymore, and I don't want to. Personal preference. But they were talking about how to use terminal server, and the basic thing was like, well, how do you secure it? And the class was, well, you're going to switch the port. And I looked at it, the lab, went through it, and I went over to the teacher and said, this is it? And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, terminal server does about 90 times more than this. Really? It's not just RDPing into the server. There's a lot more to it. And he's like, can you show me? Like, yeah, absolutely. And he called the whole class over. And I'm not like tooting my horn or anything, because this was very nerve wracking because, a lot of us are not exactly extroverted. And, and I'm like, hey guys, what's up? Like, can you show everybody? And he was very cool about it. He wasn't down my throat about it. He's like, show me what's up. Show me what you can do. I'm like, okay. And I went through it and did some of it. And I said, here, I'm going to show you my work systems as well. And you're welcome to look at it. Please turn around while I type my password, all that fun stuff, because people were just like hawks, right? And so I showed him, like, we do this, we set it up this way, we do this type of thing, this allows this. And he's like, I need to, and because of that, he's like, my lab needs to increase, And when it comes to, you're trying to go through things as fast as you can. I'm with Therm. Debt is bad when it comes to education. But at the same time, I love the fact that I have a 4-year degree. And I wouldn't change
We're
the
not going to hold it
experience I had.
against you, Chris. Not at all.
Please do. And I say that from the standpoint of the same thing that our hacker family is now. The people who we stayed up late doing labs, going through things, running home labs, letting people attach to my home lab because it was better than the schools. All those different things, like those group projects, they have become my support group and people that I have mentored myself as I've gone and done things. And it's just like our group right now, where I know I can count on, thousands of people to help me out if I ever have a question or a need. And if you haven't seen Marv's Twitter on that, and one of the SAINTCON hallways about how Marv got a job within a couple days, just because he put it on Twitter, and his family of his connections, right? His network of people who love Marv. That was an amazing story. But again, we're going to digress back to mentoring after this.
Who is huge. Yeah. I remember when we started Utah Saint, it was mainly Troy was the security guy for UEN, and he was probably the only security guy in the state that had the security in his title. And I was his little Padawan learner. And kind of when we started going around and did like the little tech things that UEN had, I can't remember what they were called, but like steering committee or something like that, where we tech summits, that's what it was. That was the precursor. And we would kind of teach people security, and Saint became what we wanted. We were really worried in the beginning, but it was everybody helping everybody. And we had a hard time getting speakers in the beginning, but we were able to get some excitement. I don't know if you remember that. And eventually we got more and more speakers. I think you guys still struggle getting new people speaking, which is
I remember the days of coming up with 12 hours of content.
Oh, yeah. SCCP class you taught.
Right. That's a week's worth of content.
That was 3 days of Troy Jessup content. Yeah. Yep.
So, Therm, here's the question refactored for you a little bit. Now, as the mentee, I love that from 30 Rock, by the way, if you've never watched that. The mentee, the one who's been mentored. What is it that you found was the most important thing in your mentor? Like, what was the most important thing that Troy did, or the quality that he had that helped you become and learn?
Well, the big thing is we're still in contact after 20 years. I still, on occasion, I'll reach out to Troy about stuff. We've kept that communication, between the two of us. When O days drop, he'll call me, and we'll vice versa. We do some of that. But a lot of it was Troy would give me assignments and just kind of let me go. And then when I got stuck or whatever, I would come back to him. I was going to bring him, I have him in my garage, my notes. So when Troy would teach me stuff like VI and running X Windows through an SSH port back to your machine. So after you compromise the box would just port the shell back to you. I have all those notes. I still to this day, they're in a binder out in my garage. The fact that he was just, he may not have had a plan, but he had kind of a plan where it started off with basics of Linux, and then we moved on to more advanced stuff. And then as a team, we were able to use unsolicited pen tests on things, and we're able to, learn from that way. My favorite is the unsolicited pen test, but
we could do a little bit of that. Not much.
Not much. We would never do it now, but our server out of Troy Remembers, we had a Sun box that was our main box we'd do our test from, and it was rape and pillage. So it's R&P box.
We did call it R&P, didn't we?
Yep. Those are good days. I learned a ton. I still use that same knowledge to this day. And I've tried to honestly adopt some of Troy's, give him a little bit of information, get him started, and then, the back and forth.
And then teach him what, Dave? Come on. What did we teach you the first thing? It was RTFM.
Oh, jeez. RTFM, yeah. Which has gotten so much better. Kids got so much more documentation than we ever had.
But listen, actually, so that's the way I was mentored too. So I've had my fair share of mentors as well, and I'm not sure that I've got their permission to share who they are. But one in particular, the one that I love the most and hate the most at the same time, is the one that taught me what RTFM meant. I actually had to go out and figure out what RTFM meant, because that was his response to my okay, so how do you SSH with the port like this and tunneling the thing and everything else? And he's like, RTFM. And I'm like, what the heck is that? Like, you do -RTFM in this command line or whatever. Seriously. And I'm like, what is going on? He's just like, RTFM, dude, RTFM. Mm-hmm. And he wouldn't teach me he wouldn't just tell me what it needed to be. I had to go read it and learn it and such. And so Dave got a little bit of that. I mean, I channeled my other mentor into Dave, and RTFM was an often response.
Yep.
For those of you that don't know, RTFM means read the freaking manual.
Yeah, it took me, I think, not even kidding, like 6 months of hearing that to actually understand what that was. And I finally broke down and Googled it. And I'm like, what?
Heck, I interview now. I did some interviews this last couple weeks, and then ask me questions. I'm like, I'd Google it. I don't know how to configure an application in Azure off the top of my head. I will go ahead and Google that, but I appreciate you asking me how to do that.
And they gave you the job?
Oh yeah, they always do. Because you run into the guy that's like, oh, I know how to do that. You don't want him on your team. You want the guy that, is going to suffer a little bit, and Google it. I mean, and advanced Google searches are something I use all the time as well to get the information I really need. This last team I worked on at SAP was a DevSecOps team, which DevSecOps means 50,000 things. But in our case, we had a team of developers who started doing security, and then we had a security guys, which was me, who started developing. And the developers knew how to Google, like Python stuff, and they would give me the answer in like 5 seconds. And I'd spend a whole day trying to Google it. I think that with experience in a technology or field, you get better at Googling. That's all programmers do. That was behind the curtain for me. Like, you guys don't know what you're doing any better than I do. They Google it.
Yeah, well, back in the early days, Googling it wasn't that easy, Like, you had to dust off your Netscape browser and figure it out.
Dogpile or Ask Jeeves or.
Oh yeah.
Or just read the freaking manual.
Yeah, man pages. Imagine that.
Nothing like
man SSH or whatever.
Man is a good one until you see the no man page exists, and then you start crying on the inside.
I can't tell you how many times I had to solve a problem by finding either a man page, or if that one didn't exist, a book, and digging through the index of that book to try to figure out how to solve the problem, because we didn't have Google.
Yeah, I did that as well, even in early days of Google, because it didn't reach the ends of the earth, right? And that's something, of course, that we talk about, is that desire to learn and fix and find problems. Is I've bought way too many tech books trying to figure that crap out. So I'm very grateful for most of it being on the internet.
Real quick, one thing though is and I think that's one thing that frustrates me when I see an individual who doesn't know how to do what we were just talking about, can't use Google to solve a problem, because I sit there and I go, it is so easy to figure out your own problems these days. And if you can't do that, because quite frankly, I didn't have all these tools that you have now when I was learning this stuff. And yet it's all available. All you have to do is, type in a query and click a button and spend a little bit of time on it. And so I think more than anything, that ability to do that is so critical in this field, because it's constantly changing, it's constantly growing, it's constantly evolving, and we have to be able to solve problems on the fly. And the only way to do that is to know how to solve problems.
Yeah. Well, to get us back into that mentor world, problem solving, like real honest to goodness problem solving, is one of those key attributes of the mentor and the mentee. Is that what we're calling it?
Mhm.
I think so.
But yeah, like being able to solve the problem. That's why IT folks, that's why Google is such a valuable resource. Because, yeah, you know what? There is way too much out there to learn and to understand to actually keep it all in your head. There's just no way. Now, understanding enough about something, like how it works in general, so that you can structure a coherent query to get the result, that's the important part. You don't have to know every single attribute of a BGP statement, or you don't have to understand PHP down to the variable levels and arrays and stack arrays and all these other things. That's what Google's for. But should you understand, hey, this is generally how PHP functions, or hey, this is generally how BGP works? Sure, right? Another great mentee attribute is somebody who can solve their own problems.
So
Agreed.
I have kind of a question for you guys. So I've worked with several family members and friends about they're in a dead end job. These are the guys that you love, and they are good people, but they're making $20,000 a year, or they're making $30,000. They got 4 kids. Have you guys? How
You can't
would you
force them.
approach that? It's so upsetting. I'm like, hey guys, I will donate you every night from 6 to 10 p.m. I will go through this. If you guys looked at a curriculum or anything, I talked to Dana over at Test Out up in Pleasant Grove. I want to say Dana White, but it's not Dana White. Wrong Dana. But yeah, that's something I've been. Dana Fellows, that's the dude's name. He used to work in K-12 in Illinois when I was living out there. But I talked to him because he does the Test Out programs and the education things. Have you guys had any success or tried mentoring?
That's why I said before, the most important attribute in finding somebody to mentor is them having that desire, that drive and determination. Without that, it is like beating your head up against a wall. And so family members, I've got the same thing. I've got family members who I'm thinking, man, I got the aptitude for this. I'm sure my brother could do it, or my sister or somebody else. And, it would be a kicking and screaming kind of drag them thing. And if their heart's not in it, if that's not what they're interested in, they're not going to be successful. Well, I can't say they wouldn't be successful, but they're not going to achieve the same level. And that's why, in life, it's important to make sure that you're focusing on the things that interest you the most. And if that's security and IT and solving those puzzles and figuring those kinds of things out, that's great. But there's a whole different genre of people out there that this is the furthest thing from where they want to be, So each to their own. But to your question, without that drive and determination for that specific thing, it's hard.
Yeah, I had a family member that it was really hard because he came to me and said, "Hey, can you teach me how to do CSS and things like that?" I'm like, "Yeah, I can. Do you want that?" And he said, "Well, I don't." I said, "Okay." He said, "But the problem is I'm a graphic designer, and no one wants to hire a graphic designer who can't do CSS." This was years ago, obviously, because I dropped the word CSS. But that was the biggest thing. I said, if you're not willing to learn it and then try and branch into JavaScript, because that was coming up, and I said, then you should not waste the time. And that was a hard conversation to have because that was my brother. And at the same time, it's been good. He's respected me for that and he's appreciated it, but it's really hard at that moment. And that was mentoring of some kind, right? But it was not exactly what he wanted at that moment because he was having that hard time, dead end job. And he knew other graphic designers who were making a lot of money just graphic designing. I'm like, I don't know what you want me to do. I can't make people hire you for your graphic design capabilities. I can find you places that can get you front end development work doing design as well as front end, but that's where my limitations are at. And I know people who will be willing to teach you those things if you're willing to learn them. That desire is a big, big deal. So with all that fun talk, I want to know, from a fun standpoint, what's been one of your biggest challenges of mentoring this generation?
Which generation are we talking about?
Let's go with this immediate generation right now, the next upcoming hacker.
Oh man, what's been the challenges? That's the question.
What's been some of your challenges?
Oh man, I go ahead, Jeremy. You take this one first. I mean, I've got an answer, but I just don't want to sound too negative. That's kind of the thing,
Right.
Well, I was just saying, a lot of them. I've had lots of kids approach me and say, "Can you tell me how to help you?" And I said, "Well, it's not that simple. There's a lot of things I can teach you how to do, but let's start with, this is it. Have you ever done any programming before? No, I don't want to learn how to program. I just want to know how to hack." And it's just, there's no easy path into this career. There's no easy path into this. It starts with a little, and then it's bit by bit, you start to figure it out. And you can't just say, it's not like, something simple that you can just do. It's a lot to chew off. And that's why at SAINTCON we focus on things like some of the simple things, like picking a lock, which is actually ridiculously simple, because it starts to build that desire and that drive, and they have some immediate response, an immediate gratification. It's oh, hey, I can do this, and it starts to build it and grow it. But there's no easy way to just say, hey, teach me how to hack. It doesn't always work that way.
Right. Well, and that's a great segue into my response. Maybe I'll be a little bit, I don't know if this is a diplomatic way to put this, but the current generation, again, not wanting to sound overly critical, but man, they've grown up with that instant gratification in a lot of different things. Social media and these other things have created this instant gratification, man, we used to have to wait for games to be released,
Or
I guess they still do.
Downloaded.
But right now you download it the week before the release date, and that's a little bit of a tangent to say we used to have to work at these types of things. But this current generation, they want it all at once. They want it immediately and holistically. And some of them actually have the aptitude and capabilities of doing it at that level. And that's where you, Jeremy, Therm, Chris, myself, and others, all of us old timers, you got to think of yourself as an old timer now almost, right? But all of us old timers, we're going to be swept under the rug. But if you think back, we're the ones blazing this trail, and the people that are coming behind us are going to do amazing things because of that quick access to things. But it comes with a caveat. They don't learn that low-level stuff that we worked on forever. They don't know how to do memory register or they don't know how to address memory registers in a Windows box. They just know they can click a button and have it do something. It's the whole script kiddie mentality to a degree. And that's not bad. You need script kiddies. You need people that can click a button and take input and output and do things. But the kids, the folks these days are not learning at that low level. They're not understanding what I'm calling the fundamentals. One of the classes that I love to teach at SAINTCON is something as simple as IP fundamentals. Here's how an IP packet works. Literally, we get down to the bits. Little electric signal came through, and that made it a 1, and there wasn't an electric signal here, so that made it a 0, and here's how it gets all put together, and then here's how the computer reads it, and here's how it gets interpreted, and here's what this means and that means. They're not learning those kinds of things. I can't even get my kids interested in that kind of stuff. Man, I pulled out the IP address or the TCP IP illustrated book one time. That real thick book that everybody has in their bookshelf,
Yep.
right? And I'm like, hey, son, let's blow the dust off of this thing, and let's teach you about network. Because he's like, hey, listen, I can't connect to my friend's switch. I can't get my thing to work, And I'm like, well, what IP address is he on? Mm-hmm. Anyways, the bottom line is IT security. I think that the lesson there is it all goes back to gaming somehow. Like, we learned how to do IP addressing because that's what you needed to do to make that darn game work, right? Mm-hmm. But really what it comes down to is things are so simple and easy now that the people are not having to learn those fundamentals. And I think that we're going to see a skip in that comprehension in that generation right now. And it'll come back because it's going to have to. You can't lose that. But it might come back in a total change on how we do some of those fundamental things because it's a lost art. Nobody knows how to do IP networking anymore. Yeah. Not that I'm predicting that IP networking is going to die, but that's just the example. But anyways, not to sound overly critical, I think that they want too much too fast, and they want it to just work, and they're not willing to sometimes put in a lot of that deep, hard work effort to figure it out. Lastly, what I'll say, again, because I like to talk a lot, I guess, is I've seen that recently. I mean, the current person that I would say is my closest mentee, as it were. I don't mentor people the same way as I used to. I'm too busy in these executive level jobs and things like that to actually get into the nitty gritty and mentor. But there was this kid that I went out and met, and it blew my mind how much drive, determination, and potential that this kid showed, and started kind of mentoring and pointing this kid in the right direction. And one of the things that became a little bit disappointing, I don't want to overstate it, but a little bit disappointing, is they were okay with just achieving a certain level and being done and not going further.
Why do people end up on the help desk and then never leave the help desk? I've never understood that.
And the thing is no real harsh judgment there either for somebody who wants. I mean, for some people that is an amazing career, and they're more about customer service. And so I don't want to judge, but you see so much potential in people, and you see them kind of get somewhere and become comfortable with it. And I think that's another problem with the current generation, and one that if they can overcome some of those types of things, they'll be amazing. They're going to pass us by, and we're just going to have tire tracks up our backs because there's some amazing people coming up the ranks. I mean, sorry, think of this. Like, these are the kids that are growing up, like from first grade on. They know a computer just as well as we did when we were graduating high school or in college or whatever. Like, they know how to type on a keyboard. They know how to open up programs. They know how to save things and how to move things and how to connect things and install programs and do all these things in first grade. Like, it's amazing. Like, they're poised to do amazing things. They just need to learn the fundamentals. And sometimes we hide it from them. Jeremy, in school, man, I hate that we have to lock all that stuff down because they don't ever get to see what's under that hood.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff under there.
Or in the story.
I was going to say, there's a complete time of schools, government, everyone, just for a fun example, gluing USB protectors in.
No.
When you talk about that too, like that fundamental of everyone used to have to bring in USB thumb drives, and for kids, some of us were zip disks, some of us were floppies.
Zip disks.
Yeah, buddy.
I was a zip disk kid.
Yep.
Zip disk kid.
I've got a really great story about a zip disk someday.
I used floppies, right? But zip disks were amazing compared to floppies.
Yeah,
but
you could put a whole 100 meg on those things, man.
250. Come on, you got up to 250.
It's because you're rich. Us poor people.
No, that was actually gifted to me. It was beautiful.
That's high school money to me, man. that $8 a zip disk was setting me back.
No, since I didn't grow up in Utah, but I did high school in Utah, and I did it in Weber County, which is where iOmega was at, and still technically is. It's only this big now, but it was right there. And so what did they do to all the Weber County schools? All the refurbished zip drives you could think of. Just, here you go. You need a zip disk? Here's 450 of them.
Awesome.
And so they would hand them out, and I had stacks of them, any color you wanted, because that was cool. That was cool. Um, but yeah, it was that there's the hardware side of it too, because you were talking about this, and I'm going to totally throw it on a tangent real quick for you to think about later, and we'll get right back to it. But you talk about losing the fundamentals, not just networking. You talk about hardware layer. From the first time I built a PC, the first PC I ever messed with was an 8088. The first one I ever built was a 486. The first one I tried to fix the board on was a Commodore 64 because I wanted to play two-player games and my COM port 2 was broken. Um, Speaking of, everything comes back to games.
It does. I mean, the thing is, the reason why people are building computers and learning how to do that is for what? It's for gaming.
It always has been, and I'm okay with that. We've had this conversation a million times. All we ever want to do is play games, and that's what we learned how to do. I mean, how about modifying someone's serial cracker to function better so you could get whatever key you wanted? Anyway, I never did that one. But yeah, like you talk about fundamentals, like hardware fundamentals, the software is there because that's what the drive has been in schools. And I really look at it going, our next layer and level of hacking, honestly, will come back to hardware and networking fundamentals because we hide that. Even building a computer now is so plug and play as it used before it used to be that it's anyone can do it. Anyone can build a computer if you just try. And not that it was ever the super hardest in the world, but back in the day, you actually had to set your front side bus. You actually had to match processors to specific boards, not just the CPU type, but
you only had like 6 interrupts that you could work with, and you had to assign them appropriately.
You actually had to change your IRQs to make your mouse work. You had a lot of different things. If you load the wrong driver, you had to reinstall Windows 95 and 98. Those type of things. And that's that layer. And you talked about the basics, OSI, right? You talk about those basics, that physical layer that everything sits on is where it's going to be forgotten. And that's where anyway, things are going to happen. Yeah. Great question. So we're going to do a quick pivot off of challenges because it's hard. I have a hard time with that as well, just even with my kids. That I want it now mentality. One of my favorite things is my previous office manager in charge of everyone, basically. She brought someone in to see what people's jobs were to see if she could. It was her nephew, right? Kid's in his mid-20s, early 20s. Like, come talk to people. And he came over and she's like, so what would you describe to him what your job is? I'm like, I've solved problems. And she immediately went, no, that is not what you do. And I went, I'm not being mean. I love solving problems. That's why I picked this job. I like the challenge. And I immediately told her, like, that's what we do. Do you not think that's what we do?
They call them puzzles.
Yeah.
We solve puzzles.
It's puzzles is probably a better way to put it, but it's like you give me something that needs to be done, and we have to find a solution. Mm-hmm. And one of the best things when it comes, and I tell us people for mentoring for jobs, I said, it doesn't matter how much you make, find a job that lets you fix puzzles the way you want to fix them. Mm-hmm. And gives you the liberty to at least voice your opinion and have those accepted some of the times. Because if you can fix your problems the way you want to or the way your group wants to, you'll be more fulfilled. And that's just so much more fun.
Right.
So what are some of the successes you guys have had recently in mentoring? Have you felt the successes or do you remember the successes that really helped out?
What's the 3 minutes?
I'm just like, again, I've reached out to people, and like cloud tends to be an easy way for people to get on ramp into IT. AWS has released great curriculum, GCP, all these cloud providers have sweet certification programs. They got free materials. And I've had people come to me asking me about getting into the system or into IT. And to me, cloud is an easy on-ramp to get into just because of available materials and the demand for people. When I was looking for a job, this last contract ending, I got hit up a couple times a day by recruiters because they need people with that experience. So I think if somebody were wanting to get into it and maybe start getting mentored, cloud would be an easy way. And then jumping into cloud security. There's maybe 5 people that know cloud security in the world. There is not many people. And there's 50 tools that do it. I did Prisma Cloud, which is Palo Alto solution. There's Dome 9. There's Chef. There's all these different tools that perform cloud security as well. And if you become, as a new person or want to be mentored on these fields, these are great entry levels for people. You'd have great success going into any one of these tools. Any of the clouds is good. Nobody really cares. Like I use Terraform. Totally eliminates all the clouds. Like my last job, we had 5 clouds that we used. We were moving into Yanzi Cloud, which is Russian. We already had Alibaba footprint. So we were everywhere. And once we started using Terraform, when I interview, I'm just like, hey guys, I don't care what cloud I'm in. I just Terraform everything. And I think that as a new intern, bringing somebody up, some of the new guys that we had on my last team, pointing them in that direction. These are easy tools, lots of documentation. RTFM.
I'll put a quick one in there before anyone else answers, but Juniper has thrown out like their whole free training suite right now online. Fantastic. It's basically the same as a CCNA and on.
It's awesome.
For free.
I love Juniper, man. Yeah, a huge fan.
Same here. What about you, Troy? You want to tell us a few successes?
Successes with mentoring.
Yeah. Maybe a successful strategy that you've had, or a successful.
RTFM is a great strategy when you're mentoring.
Yeah.
Encourage them. Don't let them quit. My mentor never let me quit. In fact, I'd get frustrated and I'd be like, "No, if you're not going to tell me, I'm just going to leave. I'm done for the day." Don't let them give up on themselves. Things like that. Strategies for success. Or how do you quantify that? I don't know. You quantify it by looking back on those that you've mentored and seeing how well they've done. I've had the honor and privilege over my career of mentoring a lot of people to one degree or another. I mean, there's some like Dave here who we literally like. If there was a mother hen putting him under his wing kind of thing, that was probably akin to what was happening in that case. And that's happened in more than one case for some of the people that I've mentored over the years. But seeing that they finally get it and that people are successful, man, that's an amazing feeling to go out there and know that, I played at least a small part of getting Dave where he's at and getting Kelly where he's at and Kevin Howard where he's at and many more. So I don't know. Strategies on how to get there, RTFM. That's pretty much it. Make them learn it.
Troy's is RTFM. Jerry, you got a successful strategy you can think of?
Well, I can't think of anything beyond what's been mentioned other than one thing, and that's been SAINTCON, and that's a tribute to Troy.
That's true.
Because quite frankly, that has been the most successful mentoring thing that I think I've ever seen. The changes that has brought across the state and the region have been absolutely phenomenal, and that is thanks to Troy. That was his
small part. Listen, it's a group effort. That's not a Troy mentorship. There's a lot of people involved in that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was your vision, Troy.
Well, it was my vision, but there's no way I could have accomplished that alone. So it's great to have folks like you that get involved and help out. That's awesome.
And if you know my story of how I got involved with SAINTCON, and I'll just share that again, that was the biggest reason that I wanted to do committee, staff, help, volunteer for SAINTCON, is the first year I went was the first year in Provo. And I have friends on the committee who never let me know about SAINTCON, which cracks me up. But yeah, Luke, went to school with Luke.
Talking to you, Luke.
And Josh Galvez, worked with Josh Galvez for a year and a half.
Yeah, talk to you, Josh.
I knew quite a few, but it just made me laugh because of who we are and where we are at in our life cycles at the time. And I was just
listen, just really quick before you finish your story, I'll keep you on track. But we as security geeks, we're an introverted type of people. Like we don't we're not missionaries going out and proselyting the wonderful issues that are
good news.
The SAINTCON news, right? But like it doesn't surprise me that Luke or Josh or some of these other folks never told you about it. But
I also don't do any social media. I signed up for a Twitter account because of SAINTCON. And so it doesn't help that I don't keep in contact with people.
But anyways, to keep you on track, you were telling us why you joined.
Back on my story, but I went in the first year with the badges. I wish I had my badges here. They're at work. It was a whiteboard. It had a little LED screen on it, and it was some chipset I didn't know. And of course, there's a badge challenge involved with it, and you're supposed to be able to do different things with it. It's the one where someone made it so it said narwhal across a bunch of them, which was awesome.
That was Steiner.
Yeah, that was a fantastic one.
I was going to go get our example badge. I've got them all.
Yeah.
Every single year, plus every single other con that I ever go to.
Yeah, I plan on doing that when my office is done too.
I think there's all mine, like 20 years worth.
But the narwhal badge is there somewhere.
Mine's behind.
But anyway, it wasn't a complex badge by any means. And I walked out and I saw this 15, 16-year-old kid sitting on one of the couches in one of the chill out areas. And the kid had his laptop out going at it. And I was just, taking everything in. And I walked over and sat next to him. I said, "Hey, what you up to there, man? What are you doing with your badge?" He's like, "Oh, there's some challenges on here." I'm like, "Really? There's challenges on there?" I'm like, "So what are you doing?" He's like, and he just was talking and going, and he was just opening up. And I'm like, "Well, that's cool." I'm like, "So," and just asking questions out of the blue, like, "So you doing any of the coding classes at school? Are you doing anything like this?" And he looked at me and said, "No, we don't have coding classes." And I lost it. I just lost it. I'm like, "Well, where are you at? Are you clearing the heck out somewhere?" And he's like, "No, I'm in Utah County." And I lost again. That's where I really lost. Is like, how does a school in Utah County not have this? I mean, that was 5 years ago, right? It was like 2015 or 2016. Like, how do you not have coding classes in a Utah County school when you have that many? We have that software belt down there, right? The Silicon Slopes, what they want to call it. And so I just kept going with him, like, "So what are you doing about that since you don't have coding classes? Has anyone been able to help you? Or teachers helping you?" And poor kid, I was just grilling him. And I'm not, I'm intimidating even when I'm nice. And it's not because I'm trying to be.
Stranger danger.
Here's a big guy.
This old man's talking to me.
Doing, man?
The kid was really cool about it. And he's just like, "No, I'm trying to get some money to get some Raspberry Pis for my coding club that I made at school." And I said, "Send me your email."
1,000 of those.
Yeah. I'm like, "Send me your email. I'll shoot you an email. You give me the school address and I will send you Raspberry Pis." And I'm like, "I don't care." And I even told him, I was like, "If you want to keep them, I don't care." And I'm like, "It's just, you need to be on there doing something. And it needs to be supported. I will send your school Raspberry Pis for this club." And so that immediately I got up and I found Lean, because Troy had said, "If you want to get involved, you become a Utah Saint member." And so I walked over to Lean, and he's down. This was in the vault, was in that in one of the rooms instead of downstairs in our own made vault. And I walked up to him, and Lean always tells stories like, "I wasn't going to say no to you." And I'm like,
Jeez.
"Hey, I need a Utah." I said, "I need a Utah Saint account." And he looked straight at me. He's like, "Cool, what's your name? We'll do it right now." And I'm like, "Hey, do you know where Troy's at?" Because he said, "I need to talk to Troy." I became a Utah Saint member. And he's like, I just saw him over there. And so I went right up to Troy, and I've never seen Troy not give me so much eye contact in his life. Because again, I was a little in his face about it, but I'm like, how can I help? And it's the same thing I said every time. I was like, I want to make sure this works. I want to make sure it goes, because the mentoring aspect of this, of kids needing to learn, who want to learn, has to keep happening. And not just kids, but adults, everything. I wish I had this when I was a kid. I would have been in less trouble.
Yeah. And what did I tell you?
You're like, yeah, just we'll do a call for committee and call for volunteers, and we'll go from there. He's like, get on it. And I did, and I've loved it. And my kids love it. My kids are begging for something SAINTCON this year, so I've got a mini SAINTCON stuff with them in our house.
Yeah. Well, you can never have too many Raspberry Pis. Like,
I got 2 sitting here also.
I've got 6 on my desk right here in front of me. Now,
I get mine from Troy.
a large number of them right now are turned into Ponagachis. Just, there is that.
Jerry, everyone's just going to show off their Raspberry Pis.
Listen, that's another one of those gateway drug things, man. You could do anything with the Raspberry Pi.
Oh, they're incredible.
I don't know. This is the one that I had way too much fun with. So I used this in school. This little netbook. I used it to run backtrack.
Yeah, that's what this Pi does.
And so this guy's got no power. This was their first attempt using Windows 7 stripped down. And so I took my 8-year-old, and he's way into video games right now. I said, hey, son, I'm going to load every video game on this box. So you can play it on the screen, and it'll go up through a PS1 on here because the video card just can't handle anything else. Yeah. And so we did that, and I grabbed all my old PS3 controllers, got it all hooked up, and so I'm like, now here's a portable gaming system. Which Pokemon do you want to play?
Wait, there's more than one? Just teasing. Never once in my life have I ever played a Pokemon game. Actually, no, I can't say that. I did play Pokemon Go when it was first the big hype thing.
I remember that.
Yeah, but you can say you never played a Pokemon game because that's not a real Pokemon game.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I never played Pokemon and the Nintendos and the GameCubes and all that other stuff.
If you're not an RPG fan, you probably never played it.
Well, we're anyway, at what, an hour and a half now?
We're at a ton of time, and I'm glad that you guys joined me for this. And I think this will be super beneficial.
It'll be fun. I'll edit it together, edit out half of what Dave had to say and such. Right? Come on, Dave. Just
I kept it clean. I am yelling at my kid, though, over here.
Well, get him in the shot. Like, hey, kid.
Are you giving them hand signs like the...
They're being noisy.
No, don't come in here.
I don't got pants on. Wait.
Dad, do you want your pants yet? No, shut up.
That's right.
I had my German Shepherd in here whining a few minutes ago, so
yeah, my dog's been whining at the door. It's nothing new.
Anyways, it's been a great pleasure to hang out, you guys. We should do this more often, even if it isn't to be recorded and published on YouTube or whatever we're doing. So,
speaking of all about gaming, Pope and I and Dave were talking about it for a minute. We were just going off on talking about getting, what was her name at the time? The head keynote we were trying to get. You remember, like a couple months ago, we were trying to get her from Microsoft.
Oh, yeah. I know who you're talking about.
I totally spaced on her name. And so we dropped off, and I was talking to Dave for like 30 minutes after about how gaming changed when we were growing up from on like PC-wise. And my last thing was like, all right, I got one last thing to leave you with, Dave. And he's like, what's that? I'm like, optical mice. And he's like, oh, my gosh.
Oh.
Those were the days, man.
Whoever played, who went from a ball to an optical mouse.
Kept having to lift the mouse up and moving it.
Yes.
To get it to work.
It was this.
Yep.
Well, I had the kids that used to steal the balls out of the mice.
Those were really cool. I probably have a whole drawer full of them. Not just teasing.
My favorite thing to do is the people who had the trackball on the thumb. We would pull that out and get a piece of tape as clean as we could, and we'd put it over the sensor because it would still work. The Scotch tape would let it go through, but it would jump because it couldn't get a clear reading. But you had to get a piece like that big.
Oh, that's bad.
Yeah.
We've done so much worse than that, but that's
Oh, I
another
know.
video.
Well, that's why I say I want to do some war story videos.
Yeah, we do. We need to actually get together and talk about the things that we can't talk about, and then we'll censor them appropriately. And
That'd be
And
fun. Well,
Getting-
it's all past. It's all been too long ago that it doesn't matter anymore, right?
Getting Pope to talk about what he did in high school is amazing. Oh my gosh. The fact that he literally scammed a kid out of lunch like every day for 2 years.
Pope's such a nice dude too. Like, who would have
It's like-
thought?
Well, the guy was a jerk to him.
Wow.
He's like, the guy was a jerk to me. And so he did everything to torture that poor kid because he was a jerk to him.
we'll have to get that story. Anyways, let's wrap it up. I've got some other things I need to get done before I get some sleep tonight. But yeah,
It's been fun, guys.
rock on.
Fun.
I've got all next week off, Troy, so I'm willing to help with whatever.
I'm kind of taking the week off, but yeah, no, I plan on being in Discord all week long, hanging out, having a good time. I need this downtime of the actual conference anyway, so it'll be great.
Yeah, amen. I agree with that.
So, all right, guys, it's been a pleasure.
Okay.
We'll talk to you soon.
All right. See you
Thanks,
guys later.
guys.
That was awesome. See you guys.
Later.